All right, we ready, everyone? Ready, Morgan? Okay. I'd like to say good evening to everyone. We now call to order the Culpeper County Planning Commission meeting for the month of May. We welcome you all here, and before we move any further with any mothers that are here, we do want to wish you a happy Mother's Day, because some of you leave so fast, we don't get to say anything to you before we leave, okay? But we do want to wish all of you happy Mother's Day, including those on the commission, okay? All right. Now, first item on the agenda is approval of the agenda tonight. Any additions or any deletions? If so?
So moved.
Second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Okay, the agenda has been accepted. Approval of the minutes from our April the 12th meeting. We received those. Any corrections or there? Being none, chair entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay. All right, we don't have to vote on that. We'll put those to record, okay? Now we move into our new business. Mr. Drumheller?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'll read the case and then I'll summarize the case analysis for you. Mr. McLaren's not with us, but we'll muddle through. We have case Z45723-1, a request by TPC Culpeper LC and TPC Freedom 1 LC to rezone approximately 34.4 acres from RA rural area to light industrial, LI. The applicant is proposing to use the property as part of a data center campus per Article 7.1A2-2.5, including an area for electrical substation and associated equipment. The property is located along Route 799, McDevitt Drive, and 699 East Chandler Street in the Stevensburg Magisterial District. It's found on tax map 41, parcels 106E, 106F, and tax map 51, parcel 83A6. Planning Commission will consider, review, and make findings whether the general location or approximate location, character, and extent of the proposed substation are substantially in accord with the county's adopted comprehensive plan or part thereof in accordance with the Code of Virginia 1950 as amended, section 15.2, 2232. The Planning Commission is also responsible for making a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors as to approval or disapproval of this rezoning. So for the case analysis, Pam has prepared this map that's up on the board for you. You can see the parcels highlighted there in red. There are three distinct separate parcels with one outlying parcel that's divided there by right-of-way that I'll get to later in this little synopsis that I'm making here. I want to remind you that, you know, proffers have been tendered, and you know, these things are, you know, put forth as impacts, as mitigating impacts, and not as conditions, as with a conditional use permit. The adjacent zoning, as the map shows, is largely and almost completely, you know, light industrial. The town, which is there in gray, has recently rezoned voluntarily in association with this project, I believe, to their M2 zone, which would allow this use. There is some R2 zoning adjacent to the northerly parcel that's shown there in gray that's in the town as well. I'll go through the agency review. VDOT, as usual, has seen this application in their April 27th letter. Grove Slade, which is an engineering firm, did a traffic impact analysis. They indicated that there's around 2,000 trips that will be additional to this roadway system after this is fully complete. Much of their letter surrounded technical questions raised concerning impacts and designs of entrances. But of note is that 0.41 acres, the small parcel to the north. VDOT did recommend that the applicant consider donation of this parcel for public use, and the staff concurs and also echoed that in the staff report. The Culpeper Soil and Water Conservation District took a look at this as well, much of which of concerns usually are handled at the site plan phase in accordance with County Code Chapter 8. And as you know, DEQ, Virginia DEQ handles the stormwater. There are suggestions on the letter that you have in your packets dated 4/6/2023 that the applicant should consider commit to more clearly define and extend vegetative buffering along streams and roadways on the project. Under planning synopsis heading, comprehensive plan, if you can switch the slide, Pam. Thank you. You all know more than I do about the comprehensive plan. You've worked on it quite a bit. This is in the McDevitt Drive technology zone here, which is a tax incentive zone. It's not zoning related directly. But however, regarding goals, pathways, and Chapter 2 of your comprehensive plan, goal number 1 is to maintain a balanced growth approach that shifts development pressure away from outlying agricultural and rural areas and direct it to the urban services boundary and the identified future growth areas of which these parcels do lie. I'll just mention one other, goal 5 is to expand upon existing cooperation between the town and county and Culpeper County regarding concerns related to land use and development. So, the town has played its cards here and they have approved the rezoning. I just wanted to note that. And furthermore, obviously, I won't get into the details. I'll leave the applicant to the applicant, but Chapter 5 of your comprehensive plan deals with economics. And obviously data centers are seen as an economic benefit to the county. In summary, this application is generally in compliance with the 2023 comprehensive plan. Please note, however, as I said before, that in general, accordance finding needs to be found in relation to the substation. The current impacts and implications, they're low once this site is constructed. As you know, there's not a lot of traffic generated after construction in relation to something of this size with data centers. 2 main points here, and I'll sum it up fairly quickly here. McDevitt Drive and Chandler, that is a prominent corner there. And staff feels that a commitment by the applicant should be made to robust landscape buffers that will effectively reduce the visual impact to this prominent corner, and it should be sought from the applicant. Another thing that's in your staff report as well, there's a note that the proffers tendered by the applicant that the height should be amended to 70 feet. And I just want to share with you that, as you know, in your last meeting, that was before you, and the board took that up at its last meeting, and basically it died after a motion was made. So the current height of the light industrial district is 45 feet, with 15 feet allowance for mechanical extensions on the roof. Staff has no significant concerns or objections to this rezoning, and it recommends approval. And with that, I am aware that the applicant is present, and I believe Mary Ann Harders has a presentation prepared for you to consider.
Okay, thank you very much, Neil. At this time, the applicant or representative for the applicant, if you come forth and give your full name for the record, please.
All right, thank you very much, Neil, and good evening, Chairman Reeves and fellow Planning Commission members. For the record, my name is Marion Harders. I'm an urban planner with the law firm Walsh, Colucci, Lubelai, and Walsh. I'm here tonight with the applicant's representative, Adam Cook, and also 2 of our civil engineering team members, Tucker Travis and Tracy Colbert. As Neil indicated, we're here tonight to, let's see if we can get this, fix this. That's okay. Just as that's getting set, it can go into the plan. Oh, you can't, okay, it's not a PowerPoint. Gotcha, gotcha. Let's see, make sure we can, there we go, okay.
There you go.
So as noted in the staff's case analysis and review report that you have, the comprehensive plan designates the subject property as industrial on the future land use map. It's within the urban services boundary, and it is also part of the Bragg's Corner Eastern Business Area. It is located in the McDevitt Drive Technology Zone, and the site is located on the west side of McDevitt Drive, and it consists of 3 parcels containing 34.4 acres. Just a graphic representation of the zoning, of the current zoning is, there is the smaller piece down at the bottom here is currently zoned LI, and the 2 other pieces, actually here, and there's the teeny little piece on the other side of East Chandler Drive that is part of this application that is zoned RA. On the right side of the screen is the proposed rezoning to all of it to become the LI Light Industrial. Also something noted in the staff report is a quotation that definitely caught my eye with respect to how this zoning really fits in, this zoning request works well with the comprehensive plan. The proposed development will be in keeping with the future character of the area and the location close to the town environs, which lends itself to industrial zoning and arguably prevents unwanted development into more rural areas of the county. Of course, we could not agree more with that statement. Contextually, as Neil indicated, the town of Culpeper has already zoned and approved the zoning to the area in the gray portion of the site is obviously all in the town, and it is where the bulk of the data center project is going to be constructed. We are here because of the 34 acres that is to the right of the red line, which is within the county. And as you can see here, what the development would contain or include, we can go to this side. It would include a main entrance into the site development that will serve the town property as well as obviously this site. A portion of the property, here we go. The building is located within the town, but there is proposed generator yard that will be within the county property line on the county property side. And then, of course, the proposed substation, which is here at the corner of East Chandler and McDevitt Drive. I think I just lost my place here, sorry about that. As shown on this slide, actually I'm going to go back. I bumped ahead. Oops, I can go back. Doesn't let me want to go back. You can go back. Can you go back to slide? Sorry, we're fighting each other.
Pam said, do you want help?
Yeah, exactly. If you could go back to slide 4 or 5. There we go, that's good. So the buffers along, we are providing a 50-foot buffer along McDevitt Drive all the way up across the property line, and then there's a 40-foot building restriction line along East Chandler Drive that will be landscaped. All of this will be fully landscaped in accordance with the county requirements. Because we have heard the line of sight or the substation located at the corner is of importance to everyone in the county as well as staff, we have prepared this line of sight to illustrate how this will be shown view-wise from the road. And it's taking, if you're, I guess you're driving down East Candler Drive and you're coming towards McDevitt, you can see the line of sight you'll see the buffer of 40 feet with the 100-foot, there's an existing 100-foot Bepco easement that is already there, and you can see those lines that are currently there today. And then the project or the land slowly goes up, and the view shed, you can see that you probably won't see anything. In fact, the trees today, the existing transmission line is pretty much camouflaged with the existing tree line as it is today. There are portions of Candler Drive that are have limited vegetation that you can see, but there at the corner, it is pretty well vegetated and screened. So this is just a line of sight. You can see farther down into the area of the substation. The distance from the road from Candler Drive to the substation is about 119 feet. And then as you come around the corner onto McDevitt Drive, there's a variable width anywhere from 60 feet at its closest point to the road to approximately 264 feet from McDevitt Drive. Similarly, we did a line of sight from McDevitt Drive itself back into the site. You can see on the left side, you can see the area from where that line of sight is being taken. Again, the 50-foot buffer, a very large 182 feet building restriction line basically set back after that buffer to the fence line, the security line, you can see here, and then back to the generator yard. So for a total distance of about 312 feet from the road to the generator yard. Again, no building in that area with vegetated buffer, be either preserved or planted, that you will not be seeing in the generator yard. There were a number of comments, and it's noting that most of these comments, as Neil suggested, are going to be dealt with at site plan. The nature of the comments are technical and are not usually what we do. We get into that level of detail at the zoning stage. However, if we can just kind of run through a couple of these comments real quick. One of them was the need for a traffic study. The traffic study is currently being conducted and evaluated. The impacts to the development of Route 3 and McDevitt are being studied. McDevitt and East Chandler is being studied, and McDevitt and Knowles Mill is also being studied. The suggestion or the idea of dedication of additional land for right-of-way, that is that little nub, that 0.41 acre piece on the north side of East Chandler Drive is the land that we're talking about. The applicant is not opposed to discussing this with VDOT. The development itself and the proposal itself does not warrant additional right-of-way dedication, so it would be something would be above and beyond what would be required of the applicant. Having said that, they are going to continue negotiating or have that as a discussion point with VDOT. The entrance location, VDOT had concerns about the location of that particular entrance. The applicant has already jumped on that and has examined a potential to relocate that entrance farther north and will meet all the design criteria that VDOT was concerned about. We have a little exhibit of that in just a moment we'll go over. Turn lane warrant analysis, the preliminary turn lane assessments that have come in indicate that no right or left turn lanes are required at any of our entrances. However, the applicant is proposing a left turn bay off of, we'll now be, with the proposed relocation of the entrance, we'll be at a median break where there is, I believe, also a turn bay there. So in making these changes, the applicant feels very sure that they're meeting all the requirements that VDOT has. Let's go to the relocated entrance. So the image on the left is where our current plan shows the entrance. After VDOT's comments and further study, we are now moving that north, as I suggested, to this location here. It's across from, it has the existing break here, and it feeds down and into a gated entrance area that goes into the rest of the property here. So you can see that that this is meeting the VDOT concerns. The Culpeper Soil and Water Conservation. The town is, again, just highlighting these are all very manageable comments that they have proposed to us. The buffering around the site, we do have the 50-foot buffers that we've already reviewed. We can consider doing additional buffering, but this is something that we actually also have started to look at with respect to tree preservation areas, and we do have an exhibit we'll show you in just a second with respect to certain areas along in the property that we can provide additional preservation. Invasive plants and the plant species removal is going to be provided at site plan and will be in accordance with the handbook as noted here in the slide. Riparian buffers and setbacks, because most of the property, the development is going to be in the town, there are very limited areas where we do have wetlands that we have to be concerned about. There is one, but with our entrance road where it is proposed and where it feels like it's going to be, there will be some disturbance of a wetland. But of course, any disturbance will be addressed through all the formal federal permits and state permitting process. We talked about the, well, we haven't talked about the permits and stormwater plan, and we do have another slide that our engineer will discuss the stormwater concepts in just a minute. But of course, we will be meeting all the permits and stormwater management requirements at time of site plans. And again, the buildings, most of the buildings are going to be located within the town of Culpeper. There is a phasing program for the building and infrastructure for that, and that could be coordinated with the county as further set forth. If I could just touch on the 70-foot, there is a proffer for, it might be a little confusing why we have, in the proffers, we have architectural design elements, and we have the 70-foot request for a building height, even though we don't have buildings in the county currently proposed. This is, and applicants can speak to this a little bit later, there was at one point, a building was located in the county, and for various technical reasons with the power company, we had to move it back out of the county, but we had already prepared the proffer with that in mind. And we thought it might be advantageous to go ahead and retain that in case in the future there might be some reason that we do have a building located within the county. We would have already baked into the approval the specific design criteria as well as the building height. Now, with respect to the building height, 70 feet is what we are requesting, and it is our opinion that based on a 2020 recent court decision, the board has the authority to approve any proffer, which would then be layered in with the zoning ordinance. It's a proffer that would be, it's very specific only to this piece of property, and it would be allowed that height. And I can share, we've shared it with Neil and your county attorney as well. So we feel confident that this is something that the board can accommodate, and we can certainly address any questions to that if you have some. On to the conceptual stormwater management plan. I'm going to, well, actually, that this first, here is the area that we're looking at with respect to potential tree and undisturbed area sites. And again, we're concentrating heavily around the proposed substation area here, again, with additional landscaping, additional landscaping that may be provided as also as the preservation and undisturbed areas. And again, farther down here to the south, again, trying to increase that buffer and lessen the visual impact to the substation. And again, one more area right down in this area. We found a potential to increase tree save area. With that, I think our next slide is stormwater management. So I don't know if Adam or you or Tucker? That one is for the, so red if you need it. No, for the button. Oops, I just changed it, didn't I? There you go.
Good evening, Tucker Travis, Christopher Consultants. So as mentioned, this plan will be permitted by DEQ. All the stormwater management, BMP, best management practices will be reviewed. It's going to fall under Part 2B of the Virginia Stormwater Management Act. We put together this conceptual plan to show how we're going to be treating the site's runoff, both for quantity and quality. Conceptually, we have a level 2, whoops, hit the wrong button. But down in the southern portion of the site, we have a level 2 wet pond. That's going to treat the runoff. We're looking at sizing it to reduce the runoff back to existing conditions, actually lessen existing conditions. So as the site is forested right now, when we develop, the same runoff will occur as it is right now. For quality, the level 2 wet pond receives 75% phosphorus removal. It's one of the higher ones that DEQ offers. And we'll be following the Virginia runoff reduction method per the state requirements to remove phosphorus.
Okay. We'll ask questions, get them all at one time.
Thank you, Tucker. And then our final slide, I think our final slide. There we go. Responsible design. There are a number of things that we think are unique about this, this project that you may have raised concerns with other data center applications in the county or outside of the county. I'm going to turn this over to Adam, who is very familiar with all of the different aspects to the site. That he could probably illuminate some of those aspects. Go ahead, Adam.
Good evening. Thank you, Marion. Good evening to the Planning Commission. I am Adam Cook. I am the Director of Development for the Peterson Companies. Thank you for listening to our plea tonight. So a couple of things. You know, I know data centers can get a challenging rep in the press and with communities. We are not new to this. We have over 3 gigawatts of data center development currently active in Northern Virginia. We are a hyper-local developer. We are based in Virginia, and we develop in Virginia. So it's our backyard. We care about it. We live here. We work here. We send our children to school here. We eat here. We sleep here. So we've done a few things differently across our portfolio. Number one, 100% of the existing portfolio and future portfolio in the pipeline is based on fully renewable energy. So in partnership with Dominion and our other energy provider services, we are using 100% green renewable energy sources across the entire portfolio to date and plan for the future. The biggest thing you probably hear or read about data centers right now is the idea of noise pollution. And the funny thing about that is it's not decibels, it's actually the frequency of that sound. We used a closed loop cooling system in our data centers, which is much more expensive to maintain for us, but it has 2 giant benefits. One, it eliminates those giant fan boxes that sit on top of the data centers because it's all a closed loop system inside, so you don't need those. Those are the sound culprits. And again, it's not the decibels, it's the megahertz, it's the frequency of the sound from the spinning turbines that creates that sound that some people have said they find as an annoyance. So that doesn't exist here. That functional mechanical system isn't even a part of our design. Number 2, the closed loop system is filled once at the beginning of development, and it's about 30,000 gallons of water, which is a small backyard swimming pool, one time. Our water consumption is less than 99% the average daily consumption of a non-closed loop system. And that's where you hear kind of about the water hog water consumption of some data centers use for their cooling utilities. And so that's why we do it. Again, it costs more money to maintain, but it's the right solution, we think, for both water consumption, which is astronomically reduced, and obviously that concern of noise. Obviously, we are subject to the noise ordinances that already exist in the county of Culpeper, but this just ensures that we're never going to infringe upon that. As Tucker mentioned, extremely scientifically, I will summate by saying all of our stormwater is managed on site. So we're not producing additional runoff. There's not a need to worry about that. We understand that the streams that are actually flowing through our site are actually drinking water for farmers and for their livestock, I should say, further downstream from us. You know, to date, we have Phil Kaiser prominent farmer in the area, as a tenant on the site today. He's a great guy, and he's done a lot to educate us and introduce us to the network of agriculture and farmer base here in the community. Preservations of wetlands and streams, again, we're preserving that. I think there's a tiny little stream impact that we plan to take for a non-permanent stream, so it's really just a stream through that when it rains heavily, you're gonna get some runoff water through the cow pasture that exists today. Our buffer landscaping strategy, again, we want to keep as much of that existing green buffer that is in place today. We'll be doing a full inventory of all of the trees out there to identify both the invasive species that need to be removed and managed, as well as planning our replant strategy. We're a relatively small company in terms of real estate development. We are probably the only company I know that has a full-time arborist and landscaping PhD on staff. Her name is Dee. She's fantastic, and she's introduced a great program. We have our own tree farms with mature indigenous trees to the state of Virginia. Everything that we introduce, to the extent possible, is drought resistant and is coupled with that strategy of maintenance to avoid any of those species that might be non-desired in the marketplace. And then I think last but not least, while we always strive to be a good neighbor, our good neighbors here are industry itself. So the fact that we are not residential adjacent, again, by design, by the Planning Commission's work, sets this site up to serve exactly this purpose. We're not a developer that's looking to turn sites next to historic battlefields or residential communities into data center. It's really focused on choosing smart places within the Commonwealth that serve the greater good when it comes to providing these types of services. One additional benefit that I didn't want to put on the slide because it's a little bit crude, but if you haven't seen it, Economic Development has already commissioned a tax revenue study for the benefit of data centers. It was mentioned casually earlier in the presentation, but by year 4 of our development of actually operating, it stands to provide over $100 million of tax revenue based on the current tax structure. That's annual tax revenue based on the development. So I think all those are positives to the development, and especially I wanted to highlight some of our sustainable and thoughtful design elements that certainly don't make it easier for us, but I believe are the right thing to do. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much.
I think that's a good way to end the presentation, and it actually does end our presentation. And we want to thank you very much for your time tonight, and hopefully your recommendation for approval to the board. We're obviously here to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
What we're going to do is take the opportunity now and so the commission can ask you and your team some questions before we open the public hearing up.
Sure.
So, so that we can filter some of those and maybe it'll answer some of the questions for the residents that might be here, okay?
Great idea.
All right, and we'll, Doug, do you have anything?
I do. I have a couple questions and one concern. One, regarding the substations, I see that there's 2 locations for substation. I was just wondering what the need is for 2 substations.
Let me pull up the. Yeah. Let me bring up oh, yeah. I guess the overall context, because we're only one substation in the county.
Okay, I thought there was one shown on the town site
There
as
is
well.
on the town site, yes.
Yeah, so you're correct.
There you go.
Within the subject property that's under the remit of tonight's discussion, there's the one location. There is another location in the back, and simply the site requires 600 megawatts to serve it, so that's the land space reserved for it. I will say we are in conversations about how can we redesign this so that the substations are all at that further west location and not what I call it the state of Maine, where the substation is showed in the county. I always refer to that as the state of Maine. So if I revert to that, please excuse me. But in the state of Maine, we show a substation today. That's in Rappahannock's territory. Everything in the town is in Dominion's territory. It would be a lot easier for us, to be frank, to be served all by one utility provider. So that is why we are researching that. We actually do have a letter of authorization, which is a commitment. So Dominion is currently designing the site as if they will service it all. And it was actually by Rappahannock's recommendation that we flipped our one building to put it into the town so that it could be served by Old Dominion. So to be honest, we are trying to work to eliminate the need for the substation on that corner altogether. And we are actually in casual conversation with our neighbors to the north and the west who joined us this evening to see if it would make more sense for them to be the purveyors of this land rather than us. So you're right. Ideally, we wouldn't put it there, but we have it there for now. And in the worst case scenario, if it ended up being there, I hope you'll understand what we proved tonight is no one's gonna see it.
Which one?
But it doesn't do us a lot of good anyway. So we are looking for alternate solutions.
Right. I mean, I've seen many data centers where there's dual providers of electric that share a substation, or they're right next to each other, which essentially is one substation, but, you know, one provider and the other provider right next to each other. Okay, that was my one question. The other one, and I'll make it quick, is you had, as far as your buffering and landscaping and not being next to residential, and you had some sections you had on McDevitt and Chandler. I think you really should have had one more section from McDevitt through the substation to the R2 zone property next to you. I mean, that's all R2 zoned, residential to the north.
Sure, and there's a setback there today. Again, we've been collaborating with our neighbor to the west,
Okay.
Jim and Steve, who are represented in our audience tonight, if you know. We are in conversations on how we can make their development successful as well, and I think
Okay.
they don't.
I mean, I'm
need
aware of
that
the
buffer
town
Eventually,
overlay, if you will,
Yeah.
but that's not, it's still zoned R2 right now.
correct.
Right. So I didn't know, I didn't see any enhanced landscaping or tree save areas along that entire border with the R2 property.
Well, I'd rather reserve that for site plan rather than a proffer, simply because that corner is in flux. And if we put in a proffer today to put that buffer, you're almost forcing me to put a substation there. And I'm honestly doing my best to get rid of that substation
Okay,
because I don't think I need it. So
Hopefully not.
today I need it. Today I need it.
Right.
But if you tell me to put a buffer there, I guarantee you I need it because that's the only thing I can do on this site. So I understand exactly what you're hearing, and you know, our neighbors are here. We're in constant communication.
Okay,
I
good.
would not put them in a position in our site plan, and we'll be right back here at site plan, and we can talk about it then too. You know
Understand.
that as well as I do. So
Okay.
I hear you, and I agree with you if that's the destiny of this site. But if we agreed to that today, the destiny of this site is a substation.
okay.
Okay,
That's all I had. Same.
thank you, sir. Mr. Bergen?
In relationship to the substations, I'm curious if you end up with two substations, project is completely built out in the town. At what point could you trigger the increase of the transmission lines and right-of-ways and easements? Would you be beefing up your transmission lines coming into town?
Dominion already has SCC, I think that's the agency, approved plan for enhancement of their transmission. So it has nothing to do with us. It was in the works prior to us. We are now the benefactors of it, but it was agreed upon and allowed by the SCC prior to us even being owners of the land down here.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Yes.
Couple. First question is there a tenant ready to build a data center right now?
We are in conversations with 3 tenants. One is the front leader. There is, frankly, there is a review of personal property tax, and I know there's a personal property tax and tax strategy conversation happening at a more broad level within the county in terms of incentivizing these types of industries. So there is a conversation right now. No one's going to sign a lease until we're zoned appropriately, because they just don't do that.
Okay. Question on the layout in general. You show that big plot of land in the town, and you show like 9 buildings. Is that really the plan? We're looking at 9, the future would look for 9 data centers here?
It might come to 8. It might be 8 buildings at the end of the day.
I'm sorry?
It might be 8.
Okay, okay. And I thought that
But
the.
it's extremely similar to what you see, but we might lose one of those buildings.
Okay. And if, because if you hadn't moved that, if you did decide to move that substation from the upper right-hand side, you'd have to put it somewhere in here, right?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. Let's see, so none of the buildings are gonna be on county land at this point in time?
Correct.
So I guess I'd look at that, that 70, the request for 75-foot building height as an exception to the current ordinance, and it doesn't seem like that's necessary for this project to go forward.
Yeah, you know what, and it's a residual of, we were under the impression that perhaps that wouldn't even be needed by the time this came through, because,
Yeah.
you know, but obviously the May 2nd decision or vote didn't quite happen the way I think we anticipated it. But you're right, it doesn't do a lot for us right now to proffer that in. It may do a lot for our neighbors if we are able to come to a deal that would eliminate the substation and allow them to develop something that is probably a little bit more attractive to you. But, so I think in that regards, it's supportive of a broader strategy that might be more appealing to the planning commissioners here. But you're right, it doesn't do much for us today.
Okay. The other question, another question I had was, the buildings that you show in there, and maybe my eyesight's not as good as it used to be, but I thought it said those were two-story buildings.
Correct.
So why do you need 75 feet?
That's what a data center is. So a data center has that kind of height just to achieve 2 stories.
Just 2 stories?
It's,
Okay.
and it's really the specification of a particular end user that's driving it. We do have a basis of design that's shorter than that, but the current leading horse is, it's a requirement of their basis of design.
Okay. The generator yard that you have on the county property at this point in time, I'm assuming it's there because you wanted the building all on the city side, is that correct?
That was by request of Rappahannock to flip the building around.
Okay.
Part of that was also, it was gonna take them a long time to provide service and energy, and they couldn't commit to that at this time and day. But their recommendation to us, as we were sort of pressuring, hey, we're going in for rezoning, I know that team members at the county that are reviewing our submission are gonna ask us, where's your power coming from? And Rappahannock, you're not giving me a lot of confidence. So they're actually the ones who personally asked me to turn the building.
Okay. The generator yards that you show there, how often they're just for if you lose power, main power, is that correct?
Correct.
And how often are they fired up? They're just fired up once a month or whatever?
Once a quarter.
Oh, once a quarter. Okay. Let's see.
And I'll say that's the misconception. A lot of people think generators are the noise creators at data centers. It's not the case. It's those fan boxes that we've eliminated that are always running and also create those plumes of steam exhaust columns that you see. Because this is a closed loop system, you won't have that steam exhaust column coming out of the top of it at all.
Okay. Good. Do you have an estimate, how many jobs will this provide?
So full-time jobs per building is about 50 on average, and, you know, a lot of times people are like, well, data centers don't create a lot of jobs, and they don't create the type of jobs at density that manufacturing or warehousing and logistics do, but you know what, they also don't create $15 an hour job. They create all those jobs, 50 per building, so it's about 450 for the campus, is, you know, well above $100,000 a year. You know, as we are looking at kind of the economic outlook for Culpeper, you know, we understand there's an automotive parts manufacturing company closing, and that's getting rid of about 250 jobs. One of the things we're trying to do is work with Germanna College to have a certification program so we can recertify technicians to be trained and have the skill set they need to become data center technicians and transition into these jobs, which will be better paying and in perpetuity, obviously well beyond that manufacturing that will be moving to Mexico.
Okay. A concern I have in fire, rescue, and police area, we've got, if these are 75-foot buildings, with another possible 15 feet on top of that. There's one fire truck in the county that can address a fire in that building.
Sure.
So that's kind of a, you know, we're kind of stuck there. It's a real risk here to put this many buildings of that size when you don't have the ability really to react very well.
So a couple things I'll say to that. One thing is, we do develop in a lot of areas that have fully volunteer fire department forces. And God forbid there really was a fire to break out in a data center. Mind you, they have awfully sophisticated fire suppression systems, but should a fire happen, you're right, it doesn't burn like a timber and drywall fire, right? Because it's a lot of electronics, and it's just a very different beast. So to be honest, in consulting with a lot of the fire protection agencies across the Commonwealth, it's not so much about apparatus to reach height, but it's really about training on the building in itself. And so what we do and what we proffer in is inceptional week-long training at the launch of each building, where we bring in the volunteer firefighter force or permanent full-time fire force or combination thereof and train them. And we offer annual training to that firefighting team. Again, with the volunteer fire forces, they have more transient staff members coming in, coming out. So you're right, you know, to get up to that roof, if you're really having to get to the roof, but that's not where fires burn in data centers, and that's not how you fight a fire in a data center. We've worked extensively with many different fire departments across the Commonwealth to understand that, to create training programs, and that's why we have this week-long intensive to orient fire departments into how to fight fires and how to be safe within these buildings.
Let's see. You talked about the buffers on McDevitt and also along the other road, I forget the name of it. But on one of them, you talked about evergreens. The other one, you said shade trees. Why would you not put evergreens, maybe not all evergreens, but if you put just shade trees on in the wintertime, you're going to have line of sight?
So there's some different standards to the types of planting. We could certainly do all evergreens. We usually generally try to plant a diversity of species, as I understand, to combat any types of diseases or infestation. So you never want to do all evergreens, because once a row of evergreens goes out, a row of evergreens goes out, and they go out pretty quickly. So we do have, there's almost, in that 50-foot buffer, 3 main tiers of trees with intermediary shrubs in between. And there's a detail, there's a specific landscape buffer detail that's a part of the submission that goes into more detail there. But I think that's why you will see that, and you don't want a homogeneous species for exactly the
Okay.
plight of plague or infestation.
So, and maybe I misread it, but it said here along McDevitt, you would use shade trees.
We'll have a robust
A mix.
planting strategy in the site
That's
plan that goes
fine.
further. If there's a discrepancy there, it's just that. It's an admin discrepancy, because we know we'll have to go into a deeper explanation and illustration of our planting strategy come that. But mind you, what we're trying to do is preserve as much old growth as possible of big, healthy, valuable trees. So we are going to be inventorying the trees and planning very specific tree placement in accordance with how much can we preserve. Because we don't want to cut down
Right.
big, old growth, valuable trees that exist today. There aren't a lot of them on that particular stretch, so
Right.
unfortunately, I think we will be having to clear most of that to bring in and plant new, but what's there, we do want to preserve, and particularly on the south end of the site, which is in the town, there's a huge area of forestry protection in that part.
Okay, yeah, my concern was we ought to mix it.
Yep.
Okay. Let's see.
Like I said, we have a full-time arborist and a PhD, and I'm not sure what you get a doctorate in landscaping in, but a tree doctor on staff full-time. Her name's Dee, she's lovely, and she will present a fully detailed design for that as part of the site plan.
Okay. I think that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ms. Thorman.
Next, thank you. So I like a lot of things that you're saying, and I have kind of 3 main areas of concern myself. And the first thing, the answer to firefighting training is not sufficient as far as I'm concerned. And we've had an experience in our county with a data center catching fire and a lot of panic going on and people almost dying from it. So the fire suppression systems, I understand, in the buildings are going to do the majority of it. But when people are involved, I'm sure there's equipment involved. So we have some fire suppression material, if you want to call it that, in our stockpile. But I'm trying to make sure that I understand, if they roll into the site, is everything internally going to be supplied from the suppression system in the building, or will that ever run out if the fire goes for a day or 2 days? You know, I don't think you have the answer, but I'm just asking you because I'm looking at the draft proffer at 23 cents a square foot, and I'm like choking, because I believe that materials itself costs money, as do the vehicles to bring it there. So I'm not allowed, because we don't ask exactly, but I'm suggesting when you get to the supervisor level, if there's any way that you could further consider that.
I understand your non-request.
Okay, thank you. Good.
I am not a expert in fire protection or firefighting myself. However, I would remind everyone, and I would remind the Board of Supervisors and town executives, county executives, that this is an industry that you guys are preparing for and have opened your doors for and invited in, and this is a part of that. And I'll also remind what I said about the tax statement, that there's a $100 million annual tax bill that we'll have due. I hope that can be responsibly
After
assigned.
4 years or something. When does that kick in? The fourth year?
Well, it kicks in the first operating year, and I think it's about $20 to $25 million in the first year, and then it ramps up from there. So there's a study that's available, it's out there. The Board of Supervisors has it already.
So you're suggesting that we're going to just pay for it?
I'm suggesting that.
Pretty much, from your taxes, right, okay.
I'm saying that's a great option.
Okay, I hear that too. All right, so then my second concern is the traffic turning lanes, et cetera, the VDOT potential, if you could donate that small parcel of land. The lady suggested that it's been looked at, but I'm just asking you, the main guy.
I think we're really open to that. VDOT, we're not sure what VDOT wants, if they want it all, if they don't, if it's
Okay, so you're gonna work on that?
donation to the county. No, we've asked multiple times. We knew VDOT was interested. VDOT's not ready to tell us what they're doing. At one point, they told us they were doing a roundabout at Chandler and McDevitt. They've since told us they're not. That land does nothing for us. I don't particularly want to pay taxes on it, even though it's just a small portion. I'd be happy to give that land to the appropriate party. We just haven't been given a clear avenue to
Okay.
understand what's being asked of us. So
Okay.
I think, given clarity of what is the best solution there, we are fully in support of that.
Okay, good. Then my last point of concern is the generator building, the generator yard, if you want to call it that, that's going to be closest to McDevitt Drive. What's a screening plan? I
Yeah.
can't tell from this, and you're not there yet from site plan,
You're
but
right.
will you screen that enough, because it's kind of real close?
Yeah, and you will see that in building permits, but there's an absolute 100% opaque screening on that. It won't be visible. I'll remind you, it's set something like nearly the 400 feet back from the road, behind a berm, behind 50 feet of preventative, landscaping.
The
So-
first one, the one that you flipped?
Correct.
Okay.
That's like 400 feet away from the road at
Okay.
a much higher altitude, so it's kind of up a hill and set back.
Okay.
50 feet of vegetation, another 350 feet of buffer on a fairly steep slope. So there will be a fully opaque screening, architectural screening for that, and we know that end of the building will have unique architectural requirements, so even if it isn't visible, we're going to have to reinforce that. We know that, that'll come in our building permits, absolutely. You're not gonna see it, is my assumption at all, but
Okay.
we know it's gonna be the expectation, so
All
we're
right, so
prepared for that.
the prevention of spillage from any of those generators facilities, they're sitting on concrete?
They're sitting on concrete pads, you're right.
All right, so is everything around it impervious, or what is the,
So yeah,
All-
everything within the generator yard will be impervious. There's also an element, the generator yard isn't just generators. There's also these things called these outdoor mechanical electric rooms there that are sort of like mechanical rooms within almost a shipping container. So there's an absolute separation and protection of all of those services here. This isn't our first rodeo. As I mentioned, we have, 3 gigawatt.
Well, it's kind of
data
ours,
center
so we're really
development.
concerned. So I just want to make sure I understand too, because my neighbors are going to say, well, you approve that. And I'm going to say, well, but they are going to do this, this, and this, and, okay, so you're confident that the overflow or spillage from any of the diesel fuel or whatever you're powering the generators with, I assume it's diesel, will be contained should there be some kind of a problem? Because Mountain Run is a big deal to our community.
Absolutely.
So I just want to make sure that,
So there's there's code and requirements for
Yeah.
all of that, of course, which everything will
Okay.
be designed to achieve.
Okay.
There is not any beyond what's actually sitting in the generators as reserve. There's no extra on-site tanks planned for.
no, there'll be a
strategized.
delivery though, and the
Correct,
the
it's all
hose won't
off-site,
connect or whatever, right?
on-demand,
Right.
as needed
Okay.
supply, which is the much safer method for it, so we're not keeping unnecessary ancillary quantities of any type of fuel today.
Okay, so
I
it's
will
a
say that
fire.
we are 100% more responsible
back to the fire.
than, and accountable than what you'll find most agricultural operations are. I mean, most farmers are going to have
Oh, no,
fuel.
easy.
Yeah, but
Okay.
it's true, it's true. I'd walk any farm with you, and I would walk any data center of ours with you, and I guarantee you that you will find almost no instance, if any, compared to what you'd find on any agricultural property. I mean, I grew up a dairy farm, I know what happens.
Okay. All right, those are my 3 areas of concern, so I'll now defer to my next.
Thank you.
Yeah, just had a couple questions. One is about the transportation side of things. And I know Kevin did the traffic evaluation for that, but I guess my question would be is, it does say it's an increase in traffic based on that. So are you looking at the level of services at the different intersections and are willing to state for the record that you wouldn't increase the level of service at those intersections?
The initial traffic report that we have, I'm not a traffic consultant expert, I wish we would have brought them tonight, doesn't indicate that risk there. I do think part of having a dedicated left turn in so that you could come up from the north on McDevitt really contributes to that, so that all the traffic isn't routed, south on McDevitt to do a right in, right out only type of situation. I think we have to see how the full traffic analysis, that comes in with a part of the site plan presents that, because again, I don't have even those final full numbers yet. But, the traffic generated by data centers is generally very low. They never even get fractionally close to things like traffic lights or things of that nature. We'd like those things. We can't
Right.
get them. VDOT won't agree to do them because we don't trigger them.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious because it did say that there was an increase in traffic. So I was wondering what the impacts are to the intersections, whether or not
Whenever you
they,
create jobs or put buildings somewhere.
you know,
there's gonna
whether a
be
warrant
some traffic
analysis
light.
was done.
Yeah, the initial analysis, we
Yeah.
have that. I believe that was a part of the submission.
Right.
It's a minimal impact.
Okay. And then, there was mention in the traffic evaluation about a roundabout at Germanna. And I guess my question is that still planned?
That's VDOT's desire.
Because it alluded
That's
in the.
up to them.
Well, it alluded in the study, or the evaluation, that because that was going to go there and the additional capacity associated with the roundabout is basically gonna make things better, right? So it's important to understand what the timing of whether or not that's in the 6-year plan for VDOT.
I don't know.
I see that it's smart scale funding, so it's federal funds associated with it. So I'm just trying to figure out what the timing of that is. And I think that would be important to understand that and how that relates to traffic. When it gets back to VDOT, I guess the other thing I would say with right-of-way is it's, from an application standpoint, it would be better to have the right-of-way, so if there's ever additional VDOT work that's done, they don't have to come back and ask for right-of-way at a later date,
Sure,
right?
sure.
So that's part of something. So I think having that, basically be willing to grant that right-of-way, depending on what it is, at this time would be beneficial before you go to site plan phase to basically agree to that.
I've been happy. I've been asking VDOT for 9 months to explain what they're asking for. So,
Okay.
as you know, to grant right-of-way, you need to have an easement document. You need to have something drawn that you can record as an instrument. I've been unable since we've owned this property, to get VDOT to be able to provide that to me.
Yeah.
I will say grossly, I think you mentioned Kevin.
Yeah, Kevin
said, you know
Sitzman,
Kevin.
yeah, mhm.
So I will say, finally, there is a VDOT kickoff call on our calendars, I think next week or the week after. But it's a meeting we've been asking for more than 9 months now. So we're finally, hopefully, gonna get some information. You'll notice, we have no development at those intersections. There's no plan for us to impact those intersections. There's no benefit for me to have ancillary land there. So I'd love to, I would sign something right here, right now for you. I just don't have an instrument to sign, and VDOT
Right.
has to provide that to me.
Right. Yeah, no, it's just trying to understand that
We're
prior
not
to going.
competing with anything.
No,
We're
no,
not
I was
putting
trying to go
anything
back
there.
before you go to the Board of Supervisors. You could try to find out what
And we might
information
have
they're
it by
looking
then.
for.
I'm
You know.
hopeful that they come to this kickoff meeting and say, this is what we want from you. And then I'm gonna turn to my team and be like, draw it up, let's record, let's get an instrument so that we can all sign it and route it through the parties that be, and hopefully expedite it
Right.
through county review so that we can have that. I am more than happy to provide that. I can't do it without the instrument provided to us by someone.
I mean, you could show it on, if they told you what they wanted, you could show it on this rezoning
100%.
application. You don't need an instrument to do that. You only need an instrument to record and take ownership, to give ownership of that land, which would happen later in
True.
the site plan phase. So the other thing would be is, can you pull up the grading or the topo for where the substation is?
The concept,
Do you have the,
stormwater?
no, are you looking for the perspective view? of the
No, I'm
setback?
looking for where the existing contours are across the
I
substation.
don't know that we have an exhibit in this
GIS.
presentation that shows the existing contours, but the cross-section exhibit showed a future contour.
Hold on.
Oh.
Sorry. No, we don't have it either.
No, we didn't, you're talking about existing topo.
Existing topo as it is today.
The stormwater.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
the last page then.
Yeah, in our.
It'll be hard to read, because it wasn't intended to really illustrate topo. You go to the,
Yeah, as part of your application, you'd have to show the
Yeah, yeah.
topo, right? So I just wanted to see what the topo looked like there.
oh, there you go, you see it there.
Because
That's
the
existing.
other item I was looking at was with the slope that's on there, are you looking at a retaining wall there? And the reason I asked that is you're gonna buffer the front of it between McDevitt and the substation, right? You know, in terms of, trees and things like that. And if you look at the intersection and how you're gonna put sight distance, you're basically gonna be looking right through the trees. So you have to plan for that, through that process. And I'm just wondering how thinking about where the retaining wall will be and whether that's gonna impact that sight distance across the frontage of the property or not.
The setback of any built area is so dramatic that you can have a very simple slope. No retaining wall is required in this design. In fact, the site fairly balances. The only retaining wall.
Sir, could I get you to speak into
Sure,
that
sure.
mic or?
So-
it's,
Sorry,
Or you can
um,
lift it up, you can take it out if you like. Or move it.
To go back, there's no retaining wall required because of the dramatic setback between the road and the built affected area. You can safely and conventionally grade that out.
Yeah, I'm thinking that the substation's all gonna be at one elevation, and if you look at the slope across the building itself, you have a lot of grade fall there that, based on what I see, is I don't think you're gonna be able to do that. So, without having a retaining wall in there. So I'm just concerned, making sure that as the project goes forward, make sure you look at sight distance, because that could be a concern at that intersection. And then the other thing, back to Ray's comment about the landscaping, generally speaking, it's about the genus and species types. And so you can have multiple types of different type of evergreens that still comply with the disease requirements. So whether you're having Pinus strobus or different types of, Norway spruce or other things, you can still comply with that and have it all as evergreen. So
Absolutely. You know, if you really like evergreens, they're the most affordable trees from our nursery, so I'm not going to fight you on that.
Yeah,
I'm actually offering something a little bit more visually interesting and,
I think
but
it's better for the
we can-
screening component. That's all.
we can look into that in the site plan, because evergreens are an economical solution.
Yeah.
I
And
will
then,
definitely take that note.
Yeah, and then the other question I had was, what is the time frame of building the project out?
So we would like to, pending successful rezoning, we'd like to go immediately into site plan. We think we can submit our site plan in August. What we're being told is the general timeframe, then that would be approved before the end of the year, sometime in Q4, if it, follows an approval cycle that's acceptable to everyone, which would allow us to be going into building permits kind of in end of Q1 of the year. We need enough design time to design everything. So the building permit timeline, I'm getting a bunch of different answers on that, but the short answer is we're prepared to move as quickly as the process will allow us to move. And, it's a little bit of a stage gate. Once we get through this, immediately into site plan. Once we get through site plan, or even some level of confidence that we have an acceptable site plans to this committee, we'll go straight into our building plans. Now, the building plans are a little bit easier for us because it's a building we build. So there's a little bit of a copy and paste to that. I won't lie, but it's never a simple copy and paste.
Gotcha. Yeah, the only reason I was asking is I was tying it back into the roundabout we were talking about before.
Yeah.
And so, okay, what is the time in the roundabout? What does the traffic look like? How do the buildings, and the increase in traffic during that time frame, what does that look like? Because you could have a situation where you may have an impact to an intersection temporarily. What
Yeah.
may that be before that roundabout is
Our
built?
current model and agreement with Dominion shows a first building initial power availability in Q1 of 2026.
Okay. And then last question I had, and it might be more for you than anybody else, but when we talk about fire suppression systems, when we talk about, water usage, have you looked at the capacity and the fire flows associated with the water line that exists out there today to know that you have availability to do that, or did availability letters?
We've requested some hydrant testing.
Get a little closer to the mic.
Yes, we've requested hydrant testing. I think that's as far as we got now. But yes, we will be looking in and analyzing to ensure that we are meeting the flow requirements, fire flow for the building.
Okay. So you don't think you have to have a storage tank or anything on site?
No, not on our preliminary
Okay.
studies.
Thank you, that's all I have.
Okay.
But I have a question. Did the town respond when you asked for that?
Yeah, we've been working with the Service Authority, and we've had a preliminary meeting with them, and that's where we're requesting the hydrant testing.
Okay.
So I have several concerns with this. One, the 70-foot proffer, I'm absolutely not in favor of. And to be flat out honest, as far as I'm concerned, y'all can just take out another building and keep it all in the town and keep it out of the county. That kind of energy generation, you already mentioned that you guys are all about green energy, so that means now we are going to see more requests for solar facilities to come in and rape our agricultural land and to take it out of productive land for this type of a facility, and I'm not in favor of that whatsoever. I also do not appreciate the comments made about agriculture producers in this area. If you grew up on a dairy, that's fine. You and your family had your type of agriculture practices, and that is not indicative of every agriculture producer around. We are a very rural community, and we value our farmers and producers that we have in this area. So you might want to think about that next time before you make a statement like that.
Okay. Keith?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I first got a question for staff, if I could. Neil, I recall from the Amazon application that once the rezoning was approved, the site plan was then dealt with at the staff level, and the site plan will never come back to us here. And I assume that's going to be the same case with these folks here. That is, we won't see the site plan.
That's correct.
All right, so our only cut at this really are just these discussions. And one more question, maybe for you guys or for staff. So that triangular piece of land where the substation is shown, what's the acreage of that triangle? I think I read about 20 acres. Is that about right?
You're correct, it's about 20 acres.
Okay, and I recall from your narrative that the substation was projected to be 6.5 acres. Is that about right?
I think that is correct. It's really dependent upon the utility. We don't actually control that.
Okay. Your line of sight from Chandler was very helpful. Have you done a line of sight from McDivitt? Because I think the substation would be more visible going back and forth on McDivitt than it would be on Chandler.
We can certainly provide that.
What kind of security fencing are you going to use?
There's, sorry. The basis of design is 2 rows of black metal fencing, so it's just a vertical black articulated fence line, and it is 10 foot tall.
Okay, so actually, if you go further down McDivitt to where the Equinix campus is, and then there's the Swift campus next to that, they have black security fencing all around that. So it's something similar to that?
We're not very creative, you're correct.
No, I think that's a great answer, because I was afraid you were going to say a chain link metal fence, which is, okay, well, that's good news. Because the black fencing will help a lot with visibility of the substation, and also the buildings on that one section of county land where that's south of where the substation is going to be. I mean, it helped very much to contain the eyesore. Can you point out where the generator yard is? Because the graphic shows a series of generator yards between the buildings. And also, if you could show where, are you going to have fuel tanks, if you can fuel storage on site?
No.
Sure, so the plan is, and our standard is no additional fuel storage on site. As mentioned previously, it's an on-demand service provider. The generator yards are the cross-hatched areas you see on the side of each building. So if
Okay,
you see
yeah.
the vertical cross-hatched sections, those are areas reserved for those exterior mechanical rooms, generators, et cetera.
Okay, I was thinking from the discussion I heard that there was a single generator yard somewhere, but there's not. Okay.
Each building has its own dedicated yard.
Okay, one other thing. You have a proffer 6.3 that says, will pay the county 23 cents per gross square foot of structure for fire and rescue, but there are no buildings in the county. All the buildings are in the town. So are you still paying the county, or are you paying the town, and this was maybe a typo?
That proffer, as I understand, that's a proffer in our town rezoning as well. As I,
We had that in when the building was in the county property, and again, we retained a lot of those building-oriented proffers in our proffers, just in case in the future, that, as he was describing earlier, there would be an occasion we could flip the building back into the county line, but, so we could clean that up.
Well, I guess maybe there's nothing to clean up. It's just so if there is a building on
Yes,
county,
it'll be
on
23
county
cents.
property, then.
Yeah,
Okay, I got you.
exactly.
And you were pending a cultural and historic resources survey that wasn't available at the time that the narrative was done. Are you still waiting on that to come back?
correct, we are.
Okay, all right, that's all for me, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. We're going to go ahead now into our public hearing, and then we may have some other questions a little bit later, okay?
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Okay. At this time, we now open the public hearing. Anyone who would like to speak, please raise your hand, be recognized by the chair, and come up and give your full name for the record. Okay.
All right, good evening. I'm Sarah Parmalee with the Piedmont Environmental Council. PEC is supportive of planning that actively protects our natural resources, historic places, and thriving communities. We are not opposed to the location of this data center campus, provided that the significant impacts of this development are given due consideration, and the project will not trigger significant expansion of the electrical grid beyond the planned upgrades that are not supposed to expand the right-of-ways. All data centers consume exponential amounts of energy, and the grid has a finite amount of capacity to move that power from where it is generated to where it is consumed. The county planning and economic development staff has done a superb job of delineating the areas most appropriate for data center development and encouraging growth in those areas with incentives like the technology zones. However, there is still a risk of the county and the town approving more data centers than Dominion can provide power to with the existing infrastructure. If a significant line upgrade requiring the use of eminent domain to obtain additional right-of-way is needed to support a data center campus, we believe that the Planning Commission and the board needs to know that. This project expects to need up to 600 megawatts of power. This is more than twice the estimate that they gave in their draft drawing in February of 256 megawatts. This does beg the question, what sort of data center does this campus plan to support? Different types of data centers can use varying amounts of power. For example, a co-location data center may use less power than a cloud provider like AWS or Google. A cryptocurrency data center will use even more. We thank you for your questions tonight because the anticipated power demand of this industry needs to be a part of this discussion and all discussions about data centers. Moreover, as you have seen, this information is obtainable. The developer should know how much energy they expect to need at full build-out because they request a commitment for that amount from Dominion as part of their development process. Dominion will know the capacity of the grid and whether or not the needs of a data center can be met with the existing infrastructure. Since these are known quantities, we ask that they be shared with the Planning Commission, the Board of Supervisors, and the public so that decisions concerning this industry can be made with all facts clearly presented, and if the approval of a project is going to trigger a significant expansion of the grid, it can be weighed in the balance on the potential benefits of the project. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes. You are next. We get homework. Homework.
My name is Deezy Campbell, and I live in the Stevensburg district. I'm kind of wrapping my head around all the information that was given and trying to decide what part of my speech I really need to give. But I give you this map because this is the watershed from this, it's 480 acres that ends up going into Mountain Run on the right side of your map that I just gave you. That's where it goes in. My farm is east of that. My property is across the bypass from this. I'm concerned about runoff. I'm concerned about spillage of the diesel fuel. I'm concerned about the noise, but we've been kind of reassured that it's not going to be, but I don't know. I'm wondering if how we could have a noise ordinance in effect before this happens, because sound travels in this county through the railroad, through the water, through the factories and stuff. I'm also concerned, I mean, they don't bring all your notes up with me, but the jobs, it's not a whole lot of jobs providing. The cost is really for the, it's a taxpayer issue, because data centers request or upgrades for both transmission service and generation. And all the ratepayers pay for this, not the data center. All the, can't even read this. We just have other concerns. Is there going to be water used? I know you said you're going to keep all the water on the property, but I don't get it. I'm not an engineer. And I really thank you, commissioners, for all the nice questions that you've asked. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else? Now, we now close the public hearing. Commissioners, have any other discussion?
I do.
Go ahead, Ms. Dornan.
I would like to reply back to my fellow commissioner, Mr. Price, and the comments about is the building in the county or not, so therefore you do not have to offer 23 cents per $100 a square foot because nothing's in the county. I would just like to make sure we understand that the fire department here is not based town versus county. It's all under one umbrella, and it is a volunteer situation. So I think for the public safety portion of this, that we need to not think of it as two separate entities, and then there's no building in the county, so therefore we don't need it. If you're giving it to the town, and the town proffers when you finalize those, that's acceptable. It's just that I want to make sure we understand it's not separate entities. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Go ahead.
I'd just like to get some more clarification, I guess, on this question about the two substations, 600 megawatts, and what's driving an upgrade to the line, or is anything driving an upgrade to the line? I thought I heard the applicant tell me that Dominion is planning to upgrade that line no matter what happens, that this particular
Yes.
project is not driving the line.
That's correct. So, as I've been told by Dominion, when we came to them to request power, they have a pre-approved project through the SCC, the State
The SCC,
Commission, to do an upgrade that existed long before our radiation of this project came to be. That upgrade will service many things. We are one of those things that it will service, but it was planned and approved by the federal state agency prior to our request for them for power.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. Anyone else?
I have a question.
Go
So-
ahead, Ms. Bird.
So has the commission asked them to delete the 23 cents from this side of the proffers? Or are we keeping the 23 cents in case they flip a building over the line?
My opinion is we need to leave it alone. It's in a draft proffer statement, and the
Yeah.
supervisors will end up taking care of it.
Right.
But I think there's also comment, well, we're giving you 25 million, so you go get it out of your 25 mil. So I just want to not make it a deletion.
I say
think we
leave
need-
it alone
Yeah.
Yeah.
as a draft. Thank you.
Okay.
It is, the town proffers are signed, they're executed, and it is included in there.
It's at 23 cents?
Correct.
Say that loud.
You signed the town proffers
The
already?
the town's rezoning is completed already.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Okay. All right.
We had a lot of discussion, or some discussion anyway, about the height of the buildings. And again, my perspective on this is, there's no buildings in here right now. There's no reason this project's not going to stop if we say you keep it at 45 feet. And so proffer right now says 75. I would say you want to take that out.
Or make it contingent upon, well, we don't even have to discuss that right now. You're right. So, and that's no problem with you, right? That it stay with what you already have, that 45 for the county.
You're requesting an upgrade to 75, and I'm saying I see no reason
Might
to
not
do
be no
that.
building.
I think we're requesting an upgrade to 70. I think that
70.
it was,
70.
yeah, it was,
Yeah.
I guess I'd prefer to keep that consistent, just so that we don't have highly variant proffers. I think that's probably going to be an incentive to our neighbors to consider this property, which would make the likelihood of a substation much less. I'd prefer to keep it in. I don't know the dynamics around why the May 2nd vote went the way it did. But, I mean, we're open to the discussion, but I'd prefer to keep it in at this time.
Okay, yeah, I guess based upon what the Board of Supervisors did and my own personal preferences, I would rather see that out.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
So I just want to remind all of us that we passed and sent to the supervisors a 75-foot, and it passed. So now I don't want to send mixed message.
No, it didn't pass.
It passed from us and went to the supervisors. They denied.
That's right.
Right, so I'm just saying, why would we even worry about it now? I mean, we all said at that particular time, except for one or two.
No, we didn't all.
Well, you didn't either. So then, so there's two reneges, and the rest of us said, okay, because it went to the supervisors with approval.
Right.
Okay.
The supervisors
Said they did, right.
But
They're
the-
worried about the fire, and I understand that and completely understand that. But I just want to make sure
But the town proffers are approved with 70 feet.
that's right,
For
So,
their building.
right.
right.
So
Well,
once
the
again,
problem
if
is,
they flip if they
these
flip a
aren't,
building, then it gives them the leeway if it goes over the line
right.
and makes it work. And is consistent, as you.
Yeah, I think we should make it consistent, because it just is more confusion if we don't.
Right,
I
right,
just leave it.
okay.
And you have to clean these up anyway, but you're gonna clean it up and ask the county to sign it now, right? For what? I don't know, but
Okay.
okay, thank you.
All right. Any other discussion? You can have a seat now.
Mr. Chairman, I got a couple things. Let me just ask you, so I noticed that your setback is what, 50 feet? For the,
Oop, I thought you could sit down, but excuse me.
yeah,
All right.
sorry, extra.
Yes, I believe
All
that's
right,
correct.
so if you look at that bottom corner of the box in the triangular portion where the substation is going to go, that's right up to the road, right? Or is,
But that's not a building. That's that's open land where some transformers will be set on.
But it's a
You know,
fence line though, right?
Yeah, the average height of, the highest point in there is about 15 feet, and those are generally set very far back from the perimeter. That's really more of the, kind of the perimeter outline of what could be a substation.
okay. And I'll just make a comment about the building height. It makes sense to keep the height consistent with what the town has got, but if you think about a 70-foot tall structure with another 15 feet with things on the roof, and it's in that corner lot there, that is not going to be an attractive feature to our data center corridor. That's just my opinion.
But when we get to that point too, other screenage and other different things that, we'll be able to be brought forth also, because right now, when we look at it, we're not even seeing another building going there, okay? But I'm sure, Neil, right, if it does get to that, some other things will have to be presented, right? At the site plan.
At the site plan phase, there's landscaping standards. I don't think that there's anything in there that's gonna, screen a 70-foot tall structure.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
Well, I mean, it's
What you look for there, what we're asked to do is to provide architectural interest. So
Yeah.
glazing, different types of materiality, but you really create those edges to look like, a sophisticated commercial building. That's generally the request of bodies like this, and that's kind of what our architectural standard assumes.
So not necessarily just a big box?
Correct,
right?
yeah.
So we have tiers that sit back?
Correct.
Okay, all right, that would help.
Okay. I think,
This is for Neil.
okay, you can have a seat.
Thank you.
Okay.
Did I hear you correctly that if this were to pass, that basically the site plan is done by y'all and does not come back in front of us, correct?
In the light industrial district, that is correct.
Okay. Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I move to deny case Z-457-23-1 as it is not in substantial accord to the comprehensive plan or as there are numerous aspects that will negatively contribute to the quality of life factors such as the increased energy and water needs, fire equipment that is not capable of handling buildings of that size, and impacts to the existing watershed. Furthermore, the 70-foot proffer is above our code, and there are numerous unanswered questions in regard to traffic, landscaping, and more.
Okay. Do we have a second? Okay. Being none, the motion fails. Do we have another motion? Ms. Thorne?
Are you ready for another motion?
Yes.
Okay. I move that we approve and send to the Board of Supervisors case Z 457-23-1 as presented with notation that this is a draft proffer statement, so it could be subject to change. That's it.
Okay. We have that covered. Do we have a second? Any other discussion?
Mr. Chairman, just a point of order. As I recall from the staff's write-up, there are two things that we have to vote on. One, we have to vote on whether or not it's consistent with the comp plan and whether or not we recommend the rezoning to the board. Am I correct, Neil?
Okay.
Well,
All right.
Since I've got the floor, let me just say, I'm not ready to vote to approve this, but I'm also not ready to vote to deny. I kind of think maybe it's a little premature right now because we have a traffic study that's outstanding. There's a cultural resources study that's outstanding. We don't know where the substation is going to go. And we don't have an answer on the impact of the roundabout that's being down at Germanna and McDevitt is going to have on the construction if both are happening at the same time. Maybe another month or so to get some of those questions answered might help.
Okay. Any other discussion? Mr. Price, I understand your feelings on it, and but this process that has to that should be moving. You brought up some very good points earlier about weather screening and different things like that, and even the way it looks right now, too. We don't even know if a building is going to be on our in the county here. So I think. As far as being in compliance to what we have before us as the Planning Commission, and this moving forward to the Board of Supervisors, by that time, some of these things that we have drawn, the questions that we have drawn, especially about the fire department, and we all can appreciate that, that some of these things can move, be able to move forward. So I would be inclined to move to approve it. So. Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
So we have the, any other discussion, because we already have a motion, and it's already been seconded, and we're in the discussion. Go ahead.
I just had one thing. I'd like to add to that, that motion, and that would be is that the applicant would dedicate the remaining small triangular piece on tax map 41-106F that's currently surrounded by street right-of-way will be dedicated to the county for any needed future intersection improvements at that location, and would be determined as to the amount prior to the time of Board of Supervisors.
Okay. Would you
I would agree to adding that.
amend your motion?
Miss-
So I would be amending my motion to include that statement if the person
Okay.
that seconded would.
I have a question. Do we need to amend the motion to include our finding that it's in accordance, substantial accordance, or did we do that?
If you
With
would.
the comp plan?
It's two separate questions.
You can include them in the same motion, is my understanding, but Ms. Thornhill may wish to consider to add that to her original motion if
The amendment that yeah.
Correct.
And we've already.
The substantial accord, yes, okay, just
No,
making
I-
sure that
I
that's
will-
in there.
Okay, then I would also agree to amend the motion to include that the plan is in substantial accordance with our comprehensive plan for that area.
Okay. Okay. Any other discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I agree it's in accord with the comp plan, but I'm not ready to approve it yet.
Okay. All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed? We will send this forward to the Board of Supervisors with a recommendation of approval. Okay. All right.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, next order of business.
Hold on 1 second.
Yes, sir.
Do we need a break at all? Yeah. Everybody fine?
I'm okay.
Okay. All right.
Yes, sir. We have case U223923-1. It's a request by Roger Sturgeon of Sturgeon Trucking.
Neil?
Yes, sir.
We'll, that's what I was thinking. I
Yes, sir.
figured, some
Yes,
of
sir,
them-
I'll pause.
Okay, we'll let you all leave first. No, you can leave first. Okay. All right.
Yes, sir.
Go right ahead.
We have case U223923-1, request by Roger Sturgeon of Sturgeon Trucking for a conditional use permit for the construction and operation of a trucking facility with outdoor storage per Article 7-1A-2-3.5 and Article 7-1A-2-3.6 of the zoning ordinance. Also in accordance with Article 17, use permits of the zoning ordinance. The use is also located along an entrance overlay corridor district, and Article 30 requires the proposed use to acquire a special use permit, which is different than a conditional use permit, in accordance with this article as well. The property is zoned light industrial, LI, and is located at the corner of Route 1529, James Madison Highway, and Route 672, which is Brandy Road in the Stevensburg Magisterial District. It's found on Tax Map 42, Parcel 68A. And I'll give a brief overview of the case analysis, if you'll bear with me. I do want to reiterate and draw to your attention that there's two distinct use permits here. One is the use itself, the conditional use. In the light industrial district, outdoor storage is subject, and truck terminals are subject to a conditional use permit. The authority to issue a conditional use permit is based on three criteria that the board will have to consider, and you may consider as well, that it will not adversely affect health or safety of persons residing or working in the neighborhood proposed use, not be detrimental to the public welfare or injurious to the property or improvements in the neighborhood, and also not be in conflict with the purposes of the comprehensive plan of the County of Culpeper. That's number one. The second use permit, which is inexorably tied to this by virtue that it is on the entrance overlay corridor district, is a special use permit. And if you'll bear with me, I'll read you the intent of Article 30. At the beginning of Article 30, it says, the entrance corridor overlay district is intended to implement the comprehensive plan goal of protecting the county's natural, scenic, and historic architectural and cultural resources, including the preservation of natural and scenic resources as the same as it may serve this purpose to ensure quality of development compatible with these resources through architectural control of the development, to stabilize and improve property values, to protect and enhance the county's attractiveness to tourists and other visitors, to sustain and enhance the economic benefits occurring in the county from tourism, to support and stimulate complementary development appropriate to the prominence afforded the properties deemed to be historic, architectural, or culturally significant. All of the foregoing to be balanced with the economic realities of the development and being deemed to advance and promote the public health, safety, welfare of the citizens of Culpeper County. It's a mouthful. The site itself, as Pam has on the board here, is only a portion of what's in red, which is 26 acres. The site that has proposed for the trucking facility is approximately 9.7 acres. The adjacent zoning, as you can see, to the north and the west and the south is all rural area. Staff does not feel that there's going to be a great impact there because there's quite a large right-of-way and the railroad as well to the south, and the entrance corridor itself provides a buffer to the RA on the opposite side. As Pam has switched the slide on me there, the properties to the east that you see cars on are already zoned light industrial, and this gives some insight into the character of the area in general there immediately to the east. One entrance is proposed, and it is the proposed existing entrance, although, you know, VDOT has talked about the spacing from that intersection and the need to possibly at the site plan phase move that entrance further away. The applicant is present and can address that concern of VDOT. VDOT also, and I'm launching into the agency reviews, but VDOT also brought out the possibility that there might be a need for a turn lane. Practically speaking, in terms of moving that entrance, you know, where it is now, there is a crossover on Brandy Road, I believe. So that is to be resolved, I suppose. It's the best way to put it. Utilities, there's a proposed drain field, approximate location there on the site. I've not seen any on-site soil evaluations to verify that as vetted completely, but there is a proposal to use private well and septic, so there's no extension of any utilities that would be required for this site. Of note, the Culpeper Soil and Water Conservation District, much of which is technical in their letter that's dated April 25th, 2023. Overarching, again, they will comply with Chapter 8, which is erosion sediment control, and the Virginia DEQ stormwater regulations. However, in those regulations, it's my understanding that sometimes, you know, folks next to floodplains can sheet flow. And, you know, the nature of this business, there has been some concern voiced by the folks at Soil and Water that they wish any, you know, the use to be considered under not allowing someone to go for phosphorus credits per se, and using particular energy balance flows that would effectively contain, you know, any spillage or anything like that from the yard on the site. So they talk about wet ponds instead of, you know, sheet flows, which is an acceptable way of treating some stormwater into the floodplain. So I just wanted to bring that one technical point up. The comprehensive plan section of our analysis, you know, I go back to Chapter 5, economics, to continue to expand the economic base of Culpeper County in a manner that complements existing businesses and the county's character. Well, there's existing businesses that are much like this. Furthermore, let's see, impacts relating to the public health and safety welfare of county residents should be considered with any application. With proper engineering solutions and adherence to regulations found in Article 20, the concerns surrounding the stormwater entrance details may be addressed at the site plan phase. Some finer points, the analysis that was provided on the concept plan, staff points out that the observer's height is 4 feet in their site distance analysis. That may be a little low for some vehicles from the entrance corridor. Development standards for parking, you'll notice there at the entrance, the yard itself is proposed to be gravel, and I want to be clear with the applicant and going forward that the paving is required unless there's an exception, and I don't want this to be a precursor to something in the site plan phase whereby it's misunderstood. I can grant exceptions to low-impact development, gravel lots, but the drive aisle and leading up to the customer entrances will need to be paved. So it's that concept plan may need to be amended going forward. Again, the economic benefit to the county is a positive aspect of this application. Staff is generally supportive of this CUP and SUP. with the acceptance and inclusion of the tendered general development plan as binding on the forthcoming development. The landscaping is of major concern. The applicant is attempting there to screen the use, which is appropriate. And staff has the following recommendations, 1 through 4, that might be included in any motion. And I'll stop there after I read this, Mr. Chairman. Number 1, the proposed use shall be limited to areas as proposed on the generalized development plan dated March 27, 2023, drawn by Sullivan, Donahoe, and Ingalls as submitted by the applicant. The use of any forthcoming site plan shall remain in substantial conformance with this plan. Number 2, the proposed use shall not commence operations until a site plan in accordance with Article 20 of the zoning ordinance has been submitted, reviewed, and approved. The proposed use shall not commence operation until VDOT has approved the existing entrance or any future improvements as required by VDOT in conjunction with the site plan approval. The permit holder shall provide evidence to the zoning administrator prior to the commencement of VDOT's approval. Any forthcoming site plan shall consider and implement provisions and recommendations as outlined in the Culpeper Soil and Water Conservation District, letter dated April 25th, 2023, and that's what I was stumbling on with Richard Jacobs' letter there in terms of the ins and outs of that stormwater management and then pollution prevention plan. I know the applicant is present and his engineer is here, and turn it over to them, Mr. Chairman.
Before you, yeah, we wait till, yeah, we're fine. Okay. Give your full name for the record, please.
Sure. I'm Rick Furnival with Sullivan, Dono, and Ingalls, and representing Mr. Sturgeon. If we can leave this up here, I'd like to speak to one of the issues that Neil raised about VDOT's comments about the entrance. I guess can I point as the lady was doing? Is this a?
Yes. No, we don't know which button.
Oh, good. Okay. We're not proposing to change where the entrance occurs here at the site. What VDOT's concern is where the entry from this access road into the site does not meet the standard for the throat length, which is the distance from the edge here back to the edge of the entrance. And to solve that problem, we need to relocate this entrance from this point back to this point, which Mr. Sturgeon has talked to Mr. Kent, who is the owner of the full parcel, and has confirmed that he's in agreement with doing that. And so when we submit the site plan, it will show the entrance back here. VDOT also spoke to potential need to improve this driveway for the traffic, and of course we will do that as well. The other item that VDOT spoke about was a potential for a right turn lane into the site because of, they were saying, the significant traffic that might back up here. We did a preliminary traffic analysis for turn lane warrants. Whoops, sorry about that. Thank you.
And those are just
I'll try
shots
to-
from the entrance corridor if y'all want to look at it later.
We checked the dimensions of this left turn lane that's currently there, and it meets the standard for what's required. They're speaking about this area right here. Even though the analysis shows that it is not warranted, VDOT has another provision in their code that says they can ask for it, and it doesn't say that it's required in the language, but we're certainly willing to work with VDOT. And if they demonstrate that there really is a need for a right turn lane, the applicant is prepared to do that. It also may be that a right turn taper is sufficient to mitigate the impacts of that entrance. And so we will, during the site plan approval process, coordinate with VDOT, and whatever that, we are in agreement that what they require for the entrance permit, we will provide. The stormwater management for the project, we have done a conceptual design, and it does show what would probably be some sort of impoundment that meets Mr. Jacobs' suggestion. And We will also look at the final details of the screening for the site to meet staff's concerns. And I'm happy to answer any other questions that you all might have.
Okay. All right, we can ask the applicant questions at this time. Anyone like to raise your hand? Okay, Lance, sir, go
A couple questions. One is, what size vehicles are going to be in the development here?
Normal
Trucks.
tractor trailers,
WB 67s?
yes.
And so is the exit going out the crossover and turning left? Is that going to, there's no issues with truck turning coming out of the site and turning left?
No, but we don't anticipate there will be, but we'll need to demonstrate auto turn for the VDOT permit.
Okay.
And we will do that with the site plan.
All right, I just didn't know if like the median need to be altered or something like that. And then on the site itself, there's a lot of tractor trailers, I guess, parking spaces in a row there.
Yes?
Was there given any consideration due to heat and other things to add islands in between any of them, like you do on parking space?
Well, given the screening element around it, we didn't feel like it was necessary.
Okay. And at the end, the last space down there that you have in the turning radius, when you go back, you're not going to have enough space to really back out and turn 90 degrees to back out of that parking space down toward the end.
Are you speaking to, let me make sure I'm tracking with you, this one here,
To the left.
over here?
Yeah, so that little turnarounds you have down at the end, I
that's-
think it just needs to be pushed out a little bit.
Understood.
Just thought for the site plan. And then, as far as following state standards, DEQ standards, energy balance, 10-year capacity, flood control, channel protection, you're willing to do all that, correct?
It's a requirement, yes, sir.
Okay. And let's see what else. The one question I had about the drain field, I mean, it's important to know that what's shown is adequate to service this use. Has there been an evaluation of the size of the field or any perk tests or anything like that?
My understanding is that Mr. Kent has hired an on-site evaluator and has confirmed that soil is suitable. Our company is working on the subdivision plat for this, and when that is submitted, it will have the appropriate certifications.
And does does he own both parcels? I'm sorry. The owner?
Mr. Kent owns both parcels. Mr. Sturgeon is purchasing Lot 1 from Mr. Kent.
So is that a proposed drain field on the opposite parcel?
Mr. Kent's drain field, yes. One for him and one for Mr. Sturgeon.
So it's not a proposed drain field for this use?
Correct.
On the, okay.
Correct.
I just want to make sure that it was existing and the other one was.
It's not existing. It's, Mr. Kent also needs a drain field.
Okay, I got you. And then, I think that's it for me right now. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Mr. Price?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just for my knowledge, so gravel surface is considered impervious just as if it was paved?
It depends on the nature of the gravel. If it's a crusher run type stone, that is considered impervious, but if it's a granular material, then it can be a drainage surface.
What you've got is considered impervious, which is why you're doing stormwater management?
Yes.
Okay. So you've seen the VDOT letter that said they don't have enough detail for a complete technical review?
Yes.
So have you been in contact with them to work out those issues and get them what they need?
We feel like that can be handled at the site plan phase, and we've looked at their comments that they provided, and we can address those. And I'm
Okay.
confident that we'll be able to work through the site plan issues when that time comes.
All right. And so Neil, the fact that VDOT's review is pending doesn't have an impact on us now. And then also, because this is an industrial site, then the site plan won't come back to us. That will be handled at staff level, right?
It will be handled administratively, yes, sir.
Okay. But the fact that you're waiting on VDOT's technical review, that's not a big issue, right?
That's not in my mind. I mean, Sullivan, Donahoe, and Ingalls have dealt with a lot of this type stuff with the entrances, and I'm sure that they can come up with solutions that are amenable to VDOT's requirements or in line with VDOT's requirements.
Okay, Mark. Thank you. That's it from me, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
So I just want to make sure I'm understanding. So is this like a truck repair, or are we warehousing parts? I mean, I understand there's gonna be tractor trailers in there, but is it a repair shop? What are we doing here?
My understanding is it's a truck transport center and with related maintenance and service of those vehicles.
Okay. So like the warehouse, is that gonna be the shop, or are you?
Yes.
So there's no
Or-
like
yeah, but they'll be storing tires and parts and things like that.
right, but you're not like transloading trucks there?
Oh, no,
Okay.
That's correct, right?
Right. Okay, Mr. Owner?
Okay, so I remember this as Sisk Trucking. So
Yes.
it's been a trucking facility for a long time, and maybe it's fluctuated from there to whatever it is today, to maybe back to trucking. So I just wanted to ask a couple questions. Is there fuel storage gonna be, or any kind of fuel provided to the trucks on this site?
Yes, come on up and give your name for the record too, sir.
My name's Roger Sturgeon. I'm the owner of Sturgeon Trucking. We're not planning on having any on-site fueling there. We'll be fueling at the Corals and Opal and on our routes. The trucks mainly run like a regional operation, so probably about 10 or 15 trucks return every day, and the rest of them leave and only come back, every few days or every week, and so that's no
Yeah,
on-site fueling.
Yeah, Payne Trucking's got something like that out on I-95.
Yeah.
All right, so I guess where they're going to park, all the parking spaces denoted, that will be a gravel.
Yes.
So if there's any kind of leakage of any kind, maybe it will go down through there. It won't be on parking on asphalt and then running back to the floodplain area?
No, ma'am, we plan to have gravel, this is gonna be easier to maintain, because the trucks are very heavy, and as they're trying to park, they're gonna twist the trailers, with the weight, and then it's just gonna cause problems with the asphalt, so it's a lot easier just to, take a tractor or something and, pull it back over if it starts to get messed
And the
up.
driveway going in, though, will be paved?
Yes, apparently according to
What Neil
Mayor
required,
said,
okay.
is that we're gonna move the entrance up, and then we'll pave it coming into where the vehicles park or, visitors.
Okay, well, I guess as far as I'm concerned, it's probably better use of, it's a good use of that facility, and it looks better than the used cars right behind it and all of the
Right.
leakage and stuff going in there. So the screening is my next question. So right now, that is, as we keep talking about, an entrance corridor to our community. And I see like the double rows of trees, et cetera, and I am not going to be that assuming that you will make sure it's well screened, but I'm going to physically ask you to either berm it and screen it. The 3-foot berm that's there, that doesn't seem like it's very big, and the first plantings will be very low. So you're going to come in or go into Route 29, you're going to look at the backs of the trailers, right? Because
Right.
they're going to back in?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, they probably will. Okay, so I just want to make sure that the landscaping plan is robust enough, if that's the word I could use, that we're gonna make it still quasi nice looking.
Yeah, well, I mean, I try not to run a junkyard, so the trucks are nice.
Good, we
So,
wanna
but
know that.
We're
Okay,
gonna
good.
make sure that we do what we need to do to make sure that it's nice. I live here in Culpeper, so, my family's here, so we're gonna
Okay, thank
try
you.
to be good citizens.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Go ahead.
Just a couple questions. You got a building up there, how high is that building gonna be?
It's gonna be 2 stories, so probably, I can't answer that. It's gonna be a
35 feet?
Yeah, 35 feet.
So it'll be within the 45-foot
It'll be
limit?
less than 45.
We're not doing the big stuff.
Okay, yeah, and just kind of picking up on Ms. Thornhill's comments about the landscaping and so forth. Your neighbor there, right, with all the cars out there, we had a lot of back and forth on whether that was being screened properly and so forth. And we actually got a fence, right? They put an opaque fence in there. And I'm wondering, would you consider doing that to make sure this gets screened properly?
Well, I would consider it. I mean, the fence with the trees and everything is gonna be hard to maintain, and what's that gonna look like in 10 years? You're gonna have to rebuild it, because what I saw from 29 anyway, it was a wooden fence, and it's already grown over with vegetation, so it's not gonna last very long. You're gonna be right back in the same boat with them.
I get, the site plan's coming back to you, right? So I guess my comment is just, we ought to make sure we got it right this time, because we went back 2 or 3 times to the last guy.
Yeah.
Let's see, we talked about no fuel being stored here. You're going to be doing routine maintenance on the trucks?
Yeah, we'll
What-
repair the
what-
trucks, like.
What about oil?
We will have bulk oil in the building, for oil changes, and we'll have like DEF and antifreeze that we're storing there.
Okay, and that'll be restricted to the building?
Yes.
You're not going to be
everything
doing oil
inside.
changes out in the gravel lot?
No, that's why we're building a big building, so we can do
Okay.
everything inside.
Mr. Chairman,
Hold on one second.
if I might, on one of your comments, Mr. Segley, the site plan will come back to me. However, other than the entrance overlay corridor and what you all require tonight or suggest tonight, I'd have no requirement for fencing of any kind. I have, or buffering for that matter, beyond what you guys come up with in terms of the visual impact of the corridor. I just wanted to bring that up, that, the site plan ordinance doesn't address that.
Okay, So I'm not sure where we are now with
Well,
buffering.
Right, and, if there were houses right next to it, or residential units, or something like that, I can require buffering per the landscape ordinance of a certain type. But
Okay.
this is a different animal than that, so.
Okay, but you have a requirement to buffer the entrance corridor, right?
Yes, per what you all put forth to the board tonight is what I'm gonna have to go by. So if there was nothing required, then I couldn't by code require anything either. So that's part of that special use permit that we're talking about.
Lance?
So I just I want to be clear that it's not a site plan requirement to screen it like they have shown.
I think what Neil's saying
that
is
wasn't-
basically if there's something that we want to require of the applicant to do as part of the rezoning, we can still ask for that at this time.
Or, yeah, a landscape.
Okay, I don't know that it's required. I would ask that they would investigate the use of a opaque fence.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
What I would ask you all to consider as a condition would be that the screening, especially along that 29 ramp, that the applicant would be required to demonstrate screening that would be acceptable to the zoning administrator. And that way, he would have the authority at the site plan to be able to dictate and be satisfied. We understand that screening is a substantial issue here. We were trying to demonstrate that with the GDP, and we're certainly willing to cooperate with staff to get something that meets the objectives.
I'll put it in Neil's learned hands. Let's see.
But I do suggest a condition, and I'm saying this as a sample for this project, but others, make it a condition that we do make that satisfactory to the zoning administrator.
Okay. The lot is kind of divided into two pieces. You got where you're having all your activities, then there's a wetland area, and then what's happening in the other area? Nothing?
Beyond the property line there that you see on the map above, this is the limit of Mr. Sturgeon's proposed acquisition, and that land beyond there still will be Mr. Kent's. I assume it'd be under his current use. I don't know that he has, I don't have any idea of what plans he has for that area.
Okay. but
Most
that-
of it, let me make this point, most of it is in the FEMA floodplain, but there
Right.
is a small area on the other side that's not accessible from this property.
Okay, but that will be, that's L1 zone today, correct? Yeah. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, let's see. How many, well, I think Lance asked a question about how many employees you have, how many employees might be here and whether or not the drain field is sufficient, but you said that they've done a study that said it's gonna work. Okay. That's it. Thank you.
All right. Did you have another question? Okay.
My only comment went back to a detail on the trees and the screening and the berm. Neil shared with me a past approved landscape design, and I was wondering if you would consider, or maybe you can tell me why it might not work, is a wider berm with the 2 rows of evergreens on top of the berm. We'd approve that in adjacent situations that gave you a little more height around that on-ramp? Or
We-
is there
we
a
had-
design
we-
reason
no.
why it isn't a good idea?
There was one, but I'm an engineer, I'm not an arborist or a tree expert. We had initially shown the trees on top of the berm, but I was afraid that the soil wouldn't remain moist enough on the berm to keep the trees alive. So I said, I directed my designer to put them behind the berm for that reason. But we've certainly, if that is an appropriate design through a landscape standard, we have no problem with doing that.
All right, well, then I'll leave it to, if we can fashion a condition that's suitable to you all, and we'll leave it to
Yes.
the administrator.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, I have one question for Neil, one question for the applicant, and then adding to what Commissioner Burton said, I've seen many berms with trees on top, and of course, the trees do not survive because they get zero water. It kind of makes no sense to do that, but it's a good idea, but it's not practical. Typically, the landscaping dies from lack of water. But Neil, you'd mentioned areas that, they'll need paved, kind of heavy traffic areas. They don't need to revise this to show that, or do they?
Not necessarily. I just wanted to be clear that this is not a precursor to something that I'm going to have to go by in terms of my paving base requirements.
Correct, so that can be
And
handled
the
at
exceptions.
site plan.
Right. It can be
Okay,
done at
I
the
just want to
site
make sure they
plan.
didn't have to come back
Yeah, and-
with the revised.
And also, it's being kicked around, to the satisfaction of the zoning administrator. While I'm comfortable with that, the more specificity that you guys put into it in relation to the entrance corridor, that would be helpful.
Okay. And then my question to the applicant is about the entrance. VDOT required, the throat length is what, 50 feet?
225 is what they're telling us.
Wow.
Yeah.
Where'd they come up with that?
I don't
number?
know. We got that just this week, and we haven't dived into it to verify that yet, though.
Okay, because I'm used to seeing them request 50 feet,
Yeah.
and it kind of looked like you're close to that, but,
No, they said 225. That's why we had to go to Mr. Kent.
We had to get to agree to the further right of way.
okay, understand. That's all I had. Chairman.
Okay. Anyone else? Yeah, Lance?
I just had one follow-up item. I think, there was concern in there about Soil and Water Conservation District, and I think as part of the application, if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, Neil, but because it's an industrial use, you'll not just have to have a SWIP for your actual construction, but you'll have to have an industrial SWIP that'll be kept through the life of the project. Is that correct?
That should be the case. It's a pollution prevention plan is a precursor.
So that if you did have a spill, because I have seen situations where I can speak to one project which it was a fuel, basically an explosion, or gas leakage on two trucks, and it caused illicit discharge out into the stream. And so you had to have protection on site, bats and things like that, that would basically, detain that runoff before it got out into the pond and also out into the floodplain. So I think just make sure that you comply with that, I think, so. That's it. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? I just want to make one comment. I can understand what Mrs. Ziegler is saying when it comes to that fencing there, but I've seen that fencing in a lot of different situations, and I'm not sure I would want to see that when I'm, entering. I'd rather see the, like Leland Cypress or something, kind of like you got that. I think you got it staggered, right? And I kind of look at that, and they kind of look more pleasant, more, when you come in, because I've seen these fences with the, when the wind and all come, those things look terrible by the time, but then, the same with we would just want to make sure that those were maintained, and that's the only thing, but that's what I would kind of, more natural and just didn't stand out. When I see the fence, I see those for mostly the junkyards and stuff like that where you, and I, wouldn't really want to see that much, but anyway, that's where we are.
Mr.
Yes.
Chairman?
Yes.
I move that case U-2239-23-1.
Wait a minute, excuse me. I didn't have a public hearing yet. Okay, my fault. All right, okay. All right, just let you pull that trigger too early. Okay, all right, thank you all very much. Okay. Now open the public hearing. If there's anyone here who would like to speak to that application, please raise your hand and be recognized by the chair. Okay. Public hearing closed.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I move that case U-2239-23-1 is in substantial accord with the comprehensive plan and be moved to the Board of Supervisors for approval with the 4 conditions that were outlined in the staff report, and adding a 5th, that screening will be acceptable to that of the zoning administrator.
Okay, very good. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, do we have to specifically say we're approving a conditional use permit and a special use permit? Does that have to be explicitly stated in the motion?
Yes, sir. I would ask that to be amended.
Okay, so
Thank you, Mr.
we
Price.
amended to add the conditional and the,
Approve a conditional use permit and a special use permit.
That's what needs to be in there, yep.
yes. Do we have a, did anyone second it?
Yes, it was second.
Okay, so do you agree with the amendment? Okay,
You
all right. Any other discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed likewise? Okay, we will send it forward with a recommendation of approval, okay? All right. Being we have no other items on the agenda, Chair entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second? Second. All in favor, aye?